This is Tales from the Cube, a podcast about call centers, what it's like to work in them, the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny and not so funny side of what it's like working in a call center. Hello and welcome to another edition of Tales from the Cube. This is going to be episode 24003. The topic will be about training staff. New and tenured is what we're going to be focusing on. Training is the inbound, or what is now often referred to as the onboard process or onboarding process for new staff coming into the center. Really, it's for any company, but we are, of course, focusing on call centers because, well, that's what we do in this podcast. We talk about call centers. So, So there are many ways to train staff, and the most common, of course, is in the class. That's the model that's used. And essentially what happens here is the instructor goes through the training manual and provides the guidance to the new staff or tenured staff, showing them how to perform the job or do new tasks in the job. If they're tenured agents, basically they would go forward and say, here's how we're going to do it now. Here's the new procedure. Typically, there are two parts to this. The first is the campaign goals and procedures. The second, of course, are the tools used to do the job. So, again, we're talking about if we're newbies, we're talking about learning about what the campaign is about. So is it a sales campaign, troubleshooting, or are we selling chickens, or are we troubleshooting, buggies for babies? Are we going forward and just sending out information? Are we talking to people about their cell phones, etc., 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 etc.? So it's troubleshooting or product knowledge that we're disseminating. And that, of course, is also done at a tenured level. So new products coming in, this kind of thing is what we're talking about. The tools, well, this is the CRM tool, the logins and also logouts, how the different parts of the system are engaged with the campaign. So there might be more than just one program or two. Usually it is two. You have your dialer program or your CRM tool, and you have your other tool to basically manage the interaction, what's known as the CRM, Customer Relationship Manager tool, which I'll dive into in a moment. For a sales role, one would learn about the product or product lines. Then they would learn about the steps to enter the data into the system. So basically, that's the process. Now, in sales, and of course, even in technical support, we call this dispositioning. So dispositioning, or saying to the system, this is what we did, is the way the agent tells the system what happened on the call. It also sends that data to the team leadership for review so they can see what is going on in a typical day for an agent. What's happening in the agent call flow. So dispositions are going to include things such as a sale or no sale, no answer, voicemail, or email. Also, do we resolve the issue as far as the troubleshooting? Do we have to call back? Do we have to take ownership? Etc., etc., etc. Now, we would also augment that by writing the note to the case. If there's a case that's involved and we've given that to the customer, we don't want to give them a blank sheet. We want to write on it and put valuable information for the customer in there. So there are a few other things also that we want to point out. The point is, in the call center, everything is tracked. Another thing that agents are trained to do is to use customer relationship managers. As I mentioned, the program is going to do things like filling in addresses and notes. Possibly dispositions are going to also be filled out. Some companies will also create cases in their manager tool, their CRM, and they will do various things in the CRM regarding a case. The agent needs to know how to use the tools and the procedures for doing this so that they're going to be able to do the work in a proper manner. That's, of course, where the training comes in. Also, during the employment of staff, up training or new training is also brought into the mix, so agents keep the brain fresh, keep up with the latest trends. It's important that is done for sure. I think most people know how training really does work, but it never hurts to do an explainer on what the typical day of a trainer and trainee is all about. So on the trainer side, they prepare the lesson, simple run through with nobody in the room, just to get an idea of how this might be perceived, how it might be something that they would want to continue or not continue, and start from scratch. Usually it's just straightforward. They're reading from manuals, so there's no stopping. So here we go. You've gotten the job and are told on X day to report for training at X time. Excellent, groovy. You're on the right track here. Once you do get in, you'll be going through a list of things most of the day, probably doing more administration than actual training. You will need to learn about the general policies of the company and the client. You may see a video or hear from HR regarding themes of inclusion and other things like safety, all that good stuff. How they manage this discipline and how they allow access to the production floor. Of course, they're going to get a photo taken, and in rare cases, you may have to provide fingerprints and other pieces of info regarding the security aspects of the job. This is true of many companies that handle large volumes of product, such as a courier company. So couriers require a security clearance and other abstracts like a driving license. And the reason for that is so they know who you are, and they know that if something gets snatched and they can get a fingerprint, they will be able to track down that person and have them arrested. And of course, that's the reason why you're fingerprinted. This is especially true when you need a reliability certificate or hire to do the job. When you work in a call center that is connected to the government, you will definitely need a reliability certificate. You'll need that status or hire to do the job. For most others, a criminal record check is generally going to be what is done there. And that's important. Now, just a little bit of a sidebar note here. I worked for the government, sort of, in a call center. I was handling records for students, actually, with respect to loans. So in order for me to do the job, I actually had to get a personal reliability certificate. That was really wild. Now, I was, of course, approved. I got the status as reliable. I think I actually got confidential, so I got a little bit higher, which means I could look at some pretty hot stuff, if you will, information about people that most people would never see. The person that did my reliability process actually probably held a secret classification, because they had to go and look at some really in-depth information. They were going deep. And I've also applied for jobs working with the Government of Canada, particularly with regard to working for Service Canada. And oddly enough, yeah, you do actually get investigated by CSIS. So, and particularly if you're going to go and work for parts of the government like CRA or RCMP, or even CSIS itself. And I've actually been interviewed by CSIS, which is really interesting. It was for a friend who wanted a job with the government, and they came and asked some very pointed questions. So if you ever get involved with a person and they say, hey, I'm going to use you as a reference and CSIS is going to come and talk to you, don't joke around about anything in that interview. It's not funny, and it's going to be taken very, very seriously. So don't fool around, because these agents are actually, even if you don't see them taking notes, they're very, very keen, and they have an eidetic memory, and you don't want to mess with that. So respect that if you happen to get that, or if you go for a government job, know that you will definitely be looked at by definitely the local police, provincial, and if there's provincial, like in Quebec and here in Ontario, and certainly by security agencies like CSIS. So, and it's basically to ensure that the public trust is not damaged by what you do. After all that is done, you're going to get the course outline and maybe do some of the more rudimentary parts of the course. In short, here's what the job is. You might get one module in. Again, it's just the basics. As you progress, the course dives into the more in-depth details about the campaign and the tools that you're going to be using for the job. And as you go, you can expect lots of tests, and more tests. And the final exam has to be passed at a certain level, and it is there to ensure that you are knowledgeable, that you actually paid attention and are actually doing what you're supposed to be doing in that course, that you paid attention and you know what the product is, you know what the procedures are, you're aware of what the company wants, and you will pass this test without any retakes or losing the job altogether, because that does happen. So what should you do to be job ready during the time that you are doing the training? Well, let's start with how you look. First impressions are important. So the first point I will dive into is some places of work are really strict with dress codes, and others not so much. Remember, you're not going to the club to do a hookup with a honey, nor are you there to make a booty call. Okay, so dressing up all fresh and yeah, man, I'm a hip hop star, not going to be something you want to do. You're going to work. Also, do try to, avoid smelling like a truck full of fish. Like, hygiene is so vital and important. So it is critical, and it can actually lead to you being dismissed if you smell like a ton of fish. Or on the opposite scale, if you doused yourself in a vat of perfume or cologne, again, you might be told, and then after that, you're going to be advised. Fragrance, that's not a thing here. It can make people very, very sick. And in our center, for example, it's absolutely banned. You can't wear fragrance. You can't go in and into the production floor smelling like a rose, and I certainly don't recommend smelling like fish. Yeah. Smell like you, a little bit is okay, but you want to tap that down so that people don't get sick. And remember to also not smelling like certain foods. Peanuts, believe it or not, even the scent of a peanut can kill someone. So we want to avoid this. So having said all that, just basically good hygiene and also proper attire are going to be your friends during this. So wear clothing that you would never be ashamed of in front of other people to wear, and also don't douse yourself in bottles of perfume, and try to avoid coming to work smelling like something out of a sewer. Okay, so very important to not do that. Respect the room. Remember, you are among many who come from different cultures and backgrounds. Some of the people that I have worked with in my many years in the center are very brilliant people. I've actually worked with people in the call center industry who are from a variety of backgrounds, accountants, people who have run businesses themselves, people who have extreme knowledge and care as far as the knowledge about how to care for technology and the depreciation values of things like a computer. So they're very well skilled in that. I even knew a guy at Toronto Dominion Bank who was part of the Iranian army. He was actually a tank commander. Can you believe that? A tank commander. So he was the dude that's sitting on the helper saying, okay, we're going to go here. He was a boss, if you will. Very, very nice guy. And I also worked in that same call center with somebody who actually could work in a nuclear power plant running it. He was, I think he was either a nuclear engineer or a physicist. So I knew somebody when I was training to be a medical secretary who was actually, or is actually, a doctor from Egypt. And she was a very bright woman, but because being here in Canada, she didn't have licenses to work. She took the medical secretary's course so she could keep up with her skill sets and, get certified to work in Canada as a doctor. So it was really neat. So yeah, that's important. So you're going to be working with people who are intelligent, and also you're going to be working with people who are like Gilligan. Oh God, Gilligan's Island. Remember that? Bob Denver. Look it up if you have never seen the show Gilligan's Island. It's a show about 7 people who end up castaways on an island. There's a professor, there's a movie star, there's a farm girl, a professor, the skipper, his protege, if you will, Gilligan, who is the protagonist and the hero of the show, I guess you could say, and Mr. and Mrs. Howell, the 2 rich people. And Gilligan is, for lack of a better word, a bumbling, for the kids it's a funny story. For adults, he's a bumbling idiot who really technically should have been strung up and hung for his ineptness, because he essentially, if I can use the word, effed everything up and caused these people not to be rescued for decades. So it goes to show you're going to be meeting people like this, even in call centers. You're going to meet people just as much as you do on the phone. You're going to be meeting people as your colleagues who are not with it. That's for management to deal with, not you. Let them figure it out. When they do, they will basically say, bye. Okay, not your purview to do that. So just deal with it as best you can. And that starts within the training aspect. You need to do that. So what should we see when we do the training? Training can last for a day or weeks, depending on the work. Let's try that again. Training can last for a day or weeks, depending on the work. Now, I will admit my preference has always been for those jobs that have a strong training element, which at least puts me in a 2-week course in a class, and also on calls with support from subject matter experts, or SMEs as they're called. I would probably be the first out the door if the training was a few hours. Then on the phone you go. Usually the call centers that are shady, Slim Shady, they're doing that. They're saying, well, here's the program, learn the script, call and make phone calls and earn money, and we'll pay you. And if you see them coming at you and saying, oh, by the way, we do cash, run. That's an illegal call center for the most part. I'll talk about those in a little while in another episode, but run, get away from them. They are evil, illegal, and if you're caught in one of those places, you're going to find yourself answering to the popo, and it's not going to be a fun conversation. Trust me, it's happened. There are people who have worked in these places who get caught, and the police come, and they don't come in with just friendly little faces and say, hi, we're here raiding your company. They come fully tacked up with their machine guns, and they're pointing them at you and saying, put the hands in the air, or put the hands on the table, don't touch the computer, you're all under arrest. And this is a raid, and they will do stuff, and then once they clear you, you'll be released from arrest. And it's not good particularly if they find that you've actually been diving into this, this Slim Shady. Not good. So if you see in a short-term training session that it's a script, you're just learning it, and then you're getting on the phones, and they're going to pay you by cash, no registration of your SIN number, no paying of taxes or anything like that, yeah, get out of there. So what should a training session or training course look like? Well, you should learn things like call center etiquette, campaign structure and goals, as I mentioned before, company and client policies, products and services that they're going to offer, and tools of the trade. All right, these are the things that you want to basically look for in there, and people who are training the staff should make sure that these things are covered in your training. Teach the proper call center etiquettes. So communicating wait times should be something that you get trained on. You know, how to tell a customer, hey, it's going to take a little bit of time for me to do this. Or you might be expected to wait if I have to transfer you to another team. Or when the people are calling in, the IVR says, you might have a waiting time of approximately 25 minutes due to heavy call volume. That might come into play. So communicate that. Letting customers know the call may be recorded. That's a legal thing, by the way. You have to let them know, hey, this is going to be recorded. And on sales calls, and in particular in things like insurance or RRSPs or anything like that, anything banking, you're going to be recorded. And also, if it's a sale, that sale is going to be recorded. You do have to caveat this to the customer. Hey, this is recorded, and I know I've done sales, believe it or not, where you have to actually tell the customer, don't interrupt me. Please don't interrupt me, because then I have to go right back to the beginning and start all over. It's going to be hell. Please don't do that. So, yeah, you want to prepare them for that. Pausing the recordings while you take credit card numbers. Well, and most call centers like the one I work at, people will call me up and do something and offer me a credit card number. I can tell you right now they're giving the number and it's going to get recorded. So we actually try to avoid that by sending out web links. So it's better for us to do that. And the reason being is, as I pointed out, we don't want people offering their card numbers over the phone. It's a compliance thing, and we can't read them back, and it's all kinds of fun things that we don't want. Technical onboarding. So answering calls using the call center software is what you want to learn. Transferring calls between other departments, how to do that should be covered in a training course. Multi or muting and unmuting the speaker while talking to customers. So if you're doing, you want that agent to know how to while on mute. And you want to make sure the customer knows, hey, I'm putting you on mute because I just got a cough, or sorry, I put you on mute because I had to cough. Or I'm putting on your hold because I need to do something, or I'm going to write a quick note. So that's fine. I will admit that in my job, most of the time, I'll let customers know, hey, just so you know, I'm doing the paperwork. Just writing my notes, for a little bit. I'll still engage them in a little bit. I'll let that silence be there for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute tops, and then I'll say, yeah, I'm still working on this. Oh, by the way, what's the weather like? So that's developing your style, your unique, who you are kind of thing that you want to do, and that should be trained. That should be trained by the trainer to you. So if you're a trainer out there, you want to train people about this, developing the style, talking to customers and engaging them so that there's not dead air, because dead air is not an art form, okay? You also want to talk to, in your training course with people, and as an agent, when you're in the training and onboarding process, you want to learn how to merge and talk and escalate. Now, this is an important part. Listen up closely, kiddies. When you're transferring to a higher level, what we call in the call center world, the senior advisor level, that's me, the tier 2 guy, or senior advisors, or specialists, or the compliance department, or blah, blah, blah. In a lot of cases, what you're doing is something known as a warm transfer. Cold transfers are where you just go directly to them. So you might say, for example, hey, I'm going to transfer you to our Jingle Bell department. As a note to you, this is going to be a call that's going to get answered by a Jingle Bell representative. Just so you know, this is a transfer that's direct to them, and basically, it's been nice working with you. Whereas, if it's to the the organ department, well, I'm going to transfer you to the organ department, but I'm going to introduce you to the specialist that deals with the organs, and we're going to have them take over the call. So you call up the organ department and you say, hi, my name is Cliff, and I have a mutual customer of ours that needs to have their Hammond looked at. So I'm wondering if you would be kind enough to take over my call as an escalation and assist the customer. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, you want to do that. This is something that would be really good. And in fact, most times it is already done. It's called, in a lot of places, it's called customer facing time. But it's really a shadowing program where you go in and you're sitting with somebody and you're listening to the calls. That's what you're doing. That's part of the training. Yeah, it is part of the training. You go in and you listen, and they tell you what it's like to be on those calls and so on and so forth. So that's a thing, and you should be aware of that process. So trainers, you want to have that implemented. You want to, if it's possible, to provide tools that enable customers to get good service from the agent, and these tools might be something known as a KBase, article listings. In other words, the procedure guides, the manuals. You want to basically ensure that that's there for the agent, so they can go forward and do the job properly. So showing them where the manuals are and helping them develop a talent for saying, oh, that's one of the first things I'm going to do is open that up. And that's another thing too. In everything that you train, you want to train the advisors, the agents, the salespeople, the technical support staff to always, set a pattern of, this is what I'm going to do on my calls. This is the steps I'm going to go forward and take, and make it so that it's routine. This is what I do on every call. Blah, 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 blah. Now, some call centers in the companies and campaigns have that kind of structure. This is what you do on a call. And, for example, Bell Canada uses something known as the cone of sales. Now, I don't know if that's still true today, but the cone of sales is the introduction. You fix their little problem, and then you start going down a cone of sales. By the way, I have this and this and this, and you just go right down and you try to get some purchasing from that customer. And a lot of people used to say to me, well, geez, that transfer is freaking nuts. I wish they would stop doing that. Well, we can't, because that's part of the job. So it is a procedure. We have to do it. And at one point, you could probably, as a customer, say to an agent, hey, I know you're trying to do your job. I appreciate it, but I'm really not interested. If the agent hears that at least 3 times, they are supposed to stop. And that's another thing you want to train, is knowing when to say, okay, time to back away from a sale, or okay, time to move on to another subject, or okay, we need to basically get off the phone and let the customer breathe. So again, it's all about style, about how to manage that call. And that's an important thing. It's managing that, and that's part of the tools as well, is providing the, that. And the other thing, too, is providing the manuals to the customers. So having knowledge management tools will help you learn the product, show that product's features and benefits, and basically you can send that to the customer if it's allowed. And, of course, helping you as an agent to better serve that customer. You want to know that, and so try and make sure you get that information from the trainer, and trainers make sure to give it to the agents you're training. You want to set clear objectives about the program that the advisor is going to be working on, the agent. Things like what the average handle time is. is it 5 minutes or 2 minutes for a call to be taken, and how the greetings are going to be done, if there's branding that needs to be done, how that's done, how the cases are to be logged, the process basically. You want to set the objectives for how this is done. And you want to make sure that everything is notated so that the advisor understands, hey, this is the procedure, how we do it, and here's the objective. Making sure that I've written everything, that I've maintained a proper amount of utilization of my time. So I've done that, and that I've dispositioned the call correctly. So my objective is to stay within the guidelines as far as how often I'm taking calls, how many calls I take, when the call is done, making sure it's within a timely manner, and how I disposition the call and notate the CRM tool to update the information for the next person who calls or is called by that customer, or if I have to call myself, if I take an ownership. And all of that is important. And lastly, you want to make sure that during the process, all the way through, you want to give feedback to the team that you're training. You want them to know what's happening, how they're doing. So it's a critical step. So all of these things are critical points to training, and you want to implement them and make sure that they work. And that is pretty much going to go to a place where we end all this lovely conversation. I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to listen to the podcast, and I hope that you're enjoying the subjects. The next topic I think I'm going to talk about is what agents shouldn't do on calls. Things they should not do and not say. It is important. So this is a good start. Training, and then now let's talk about this. And I appreciate everybody's input when I do get feedback. You can email me, foureyesfreelancing at gmail.com. And again, I want to say thank you very much for diving in with me today and learning a little bit more about training and some of the things that you may want to consider if you're going in the call center industry or any other trade for that matter. Training is an important and integral part of it, and you want to make sure that you get good, solid training. Avoid that Slim Shady. Okay, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening. My name again is Cliff, and this is Tales from the Cube. Thanks for listening to Tales from the Cube. My name is Cliff Tuer. You can hear us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Audible. Thanks again for listening. We appreciate it. We'll see you in the next episode of Tales from the Cube.